Hey, welcome back to another episode of In the Chute. Calen, what have you got for me today?
Mom asked me questions and I answered them. And she was saying things about, what would be goals and such if we could do things with unlimited resources and all that. I was like, oh, blank check,
Hmm,
thank you. But yeah,
yeah,
anyway, we started talking about one of my priorities would be outright owned land. Don't
yeah, more
lease
land.
anything, all
Yeah.
that. So the other thing that came up with that was something that's kind of a hybrid of the two, but it's still a lease as a 99-year lease. And people don't realize it, but they are
Mhm.
prevalent. There are, people that use them, particularly when they typically it's when you work with like law or
Government.
the government,
Yeah,
you'll do a 99-year lease on wilderness or something like
right.
that, or access to a said location.
Don't
That
get
tends
emotionally attached to that though, because what happens when those leases are up?
Well, and that's my point. So I wanted to get your thoughts on 99-year leases because mine is I hate them. I think they're trash. They're a good option, but the problem is here's where I get really upset with them. You are not doing the due diligence as this generation to fix the problem or find a solution. You are kicking the can down the road to the next generation, whether that's 2 or 3 away. You're waiting for them to figure it out, and by that time, it could be already outside their ability to influence or anything, and they have to simply walk away from it because it's been either taken from them or it won't be renewed because of political decisions. But again, my opinion, I think you're not doing due diligence for the legacy of what you're trying to do. You've instead kicked the can down the road so it's just not your problem.
Yeah, that 90, you say you don't like them. It all depends on that 99, where you're at on that 99 years. Are you at the beginning
Right.
of that or the end of that, right?
Yeah.
So
And
the
mine coming is coming with like you trying to reset it up. You're
right.
you're setting it up for another 99. That's really where I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of those have ever happened. Maybe they
Yeah.
have somewhere, but certainly not in this country. We haven't been there that long, and they weren't starting that. But I can tell you what's happened when their 99-year leases were up. They had cabins on a place, of course, and you know that when you go in there and you build a cabin, and some of them are actually pretty decent little cabins, and you put some work into them so you can use them, and then leases up, they say get your stuff out. You have whatever time. Here's the end date, and then the Forest Service goes in and burns everything. They burn it down.
Mm,
That just makes people happy. Even
yeah.
if they just turned it loose and it was available for first come first served usage,
Right.
I'd be okay with that. Even if it was my 99-year lease that you didn't get renewed. I mean, okay. Um,
But then to that's negligence in my opinion. And you're taking that and you're
well,
burning resources that could be used for something.
that's not about burning resources at that point. That's about social policy.
Mm,
We don't want think about what that says. We don't want you in here. We're burning you out.
yeah.
I mean, it's really what it is because you got people in some of these deals like the uh, what is it? The Department of Ag, and not just that, the Department of the Interior, who's in there right now, a person who was a tree spiker, an
Yeah.
eco terrorist, and so they're setting policy, making policy, and it never turns out well for people who they say multiple usage is the key. Well, no usage is not multiple usage. The other things that happen is, you may get a 99-year lease, and then all of a sudden the boundary around that area gets changed where it's like, okay, you can no longer come in here. And they used to be able to, in some of these areas, go in and drive into them or take a small motorcycle and go into them. And they go, okay, now we're changing the boundary. Now it's a wilderness area. No motorized anything in there. You can't even take a chainsaw to cut wood, you know. And I guess that's, the policy changes that take place after the fact, and that's been done as well. So you got the heavy hand of the government on one deal where they're taking some money for a lease, and then after that they're changing the rules so that it makes it very hard or much harder to use that lease. That
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
Happens a lot.
So you're not a fan then.
Well, again, it depends on which end of that 99 years you're on.
Yeah.
If I was in year 20 and I wanted to build a cabin and be able to stay able to in that thing and use it for the next 50 years, I've still got another 30, 20, 29 years worth of cabin use that's going to be there after I'm dead. Who cares?
Right.
Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard the phrase, I don't care, I ain't going to be around?
Yeah, I hear it a lot when I go home, and I'm not
You know,
appreciative of it at all.
but
Maybe one
but
day.
again, that's where that's at. What if you're on the, what if you got 5 years left to run on that lease, and you're 30 years old?
Right. Well,
That's a loss.
but that's the other thing too, is like there's no incentive either. Like why at that point you're looking at it and you're going, I'm gonna probably lose this anyway. What incentive do I have to improve
You're
or
not
to
going to
make
improve
it?
it.
Yeah, there's nothing whatsoever. And so to me,
Right.
it's like again, it's kicking the can down the road. It's causing problems for those who come after me. I'm not doing my due diligence to make sure it's set up for success. And really the initial thought that stemmed from all of it is I would rather just own land outright than to lease it at all, because we've had this discussion before. Leasing, whether it's year to year or every 2 years, every 5, whatever you want to set up in your contract, it's not ideal. Owning outright is much better, because would you rather rent a car every single day of your life, or would you rather own it and be paid off and you don't have to worry about it being taken from you? It's
Well, yeah, but again, that depends on what you're looking at. I mean, yeah, I think it's always easier to own land that's paid off.
yes.
That's easy. It's
Now you
paying
still
that
have to
land
pay
off is
taxes
one.
for it and all
Right.
that. Like
Right.
there's
It's,
things that
yeah.
come with it, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
much better.
And I know people that's all they do is they lease places. They don't own anything. They've got pretty good sized places and they lease them.
Now
And
I
of
think
course,
there's a
depending on
time
how
for
they
that,
treat it. Yeah.
right?
Right.
If you're just starting an egg and you don't have any sort of land to your name, maybe that's the way you get your foot in the door. And maybe it's the best way to do it. And then you slowly acquire land, and then from there you build out. But I've heard of some people that that's exactly what they do to get started. And I'm not against it entirely. I'm just saying the majority of the time I would rather just outright own it than to lease.
Well, and I know there was a place that the guy had several ranches, and your grandpa, my dad, was talking to him and said, "How do you ask? Mind if I ask you questions about this? How do you do this? How do you make this happen? How did you get the capital, to do this? How did you make that work?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't run off my money. I use other people's money."
Yeah.
There's a risk reduction right there, and it's like, ooh.
But is that moral or
Ooh.
ethical?
Well, as long as it works for everybody else and everybody's getting something out of it, is it unethical? It's a business. It's how you do that. And it's like, man, I don't see, the first thing I see in that is the ownership isn't there. And what I mean by ownership is, how much do I care about whether this works or not?
Right. I can
Right.
use your pickup and I don't care if I
Right.
run it, I run it until there's no oil in it and I seize up the engine and then I just walk away. That's your problem.
Well, and that's a problem with a lot of leases. You see people that treat leases just like that. It's like, I don't care, ain't mine.
And
Instead
run
of
it into dirt and they're not taking care of the ground. Yeah.
Not spraying for any weeds or anything like that, or not even maintaining fences. I mean, we've had that happen where, we lease a place after somebody else has, and it's like they didn't do what they're supposed to do
Well,
by
that's
any
what I was gonna
stretch of
say.
imagination.
The responsible people that come after it, like us with the particular lease we have, that's exactly what happened. Then the other one sold it.
I'm
to
not
the
complaining about
individuals.
it, but that's typical. That's just the way it
Right.
goes.
But then there's also the other ones too, where sold land to some folks. Now we lease it from them, and we saw that the fencing needed addressing. So what did we do as proper property owners and leasers also, because land butts up against the leased item or the leased area? We took care of the fencing. Like this, it's being responsible, man.
And yeah, exactly. And later on, the one owner, she was, "Oh, I can help with that," so
Yeah.
But it would have never been done if you don't do it. And you gotta see ahead and take those initiatives. But leases are leases. There's so many different ones, so many different types, whether they're, a Forest Service lease for grazing, which is sometimes year to year. People have those, and those are always challenged by people who they don't think a cow or a sheep should be anywhere near a Forest Service boundary.
I was gonna say, if anything happens like it did in early February, you could just get your cattle shot anyway because it's the Forest Service.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly.
All right, with that, I think I mean, honestly, pastures or leases, not a big fan of them. Prefer to own outright, and definitely not 99-year leases. But
Yeah, that's a big time commitment there. Because what if you can't fulfill that on your end?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, leases have a great play. I'm happy with some leases. Um, yeah, I'm with you. Owning it and having it paid off is better. So if you could own it with like if you had unlimited money, there you go. I wouldn't own everything, only what borders us.
There you go. All right. With that, we'll put it out to pasture.